Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 11 of the Nav.it Files. We're so happy to have you here with us for another Monday. Erin, let's kick things off right this week. What did you do for yourself today?
Hi everyone. So I worked out, but I my big self-care was this weekend. My son and I took a little road trip up to visit my little godchildren. So
So
we got a little weekend away. It was wonderful up in Bellingham, which is in like on the border towards Canada, but it's super pretty. And yeah, I got a moment of like just hanging out and not doing much and letting everyone else do things like cook, and I took care of kids and they like managed the house and everything else, which was amazing.
that was amazing. We were literally ships passing in the night because I spent 4 hours in the
Yes.
Seattle airport. Just an FYI, airliners can move up your flight time.
Yeah, but
Who knew that was a thing?
shouldn't. They shouldn't.
They should not, and yet Alaska Airlines did. So I didn't, like a normal person, I didn't see the text message they send at midnight. And so when I woke up for our early morning flight, I woke up to a text message saying that it was actually an hour earlier now.
See,
Like,
I'm
thank
all.
God for Clear. Clear is the best thing that's ever happened to
Oh,
me.
that's the only way you made it?
Yeah, well, actually, this is hilarious. Maybe this is a real talk as we're piggybacking on our
Yeah.
matriarchy to equality thing.
Yes.
But I used the patriarchy in my favor yesterday morning.
As one
So,
should.
like men, I'll save it for my real talk, but basically, I manhandled a gate agent, but it was great and worth it.
Well, why don't you just do your real talk? Let's do
No,
it.
I'm gonna save it so everybody watches the rest of the episode. We have
Okay.
exciting things to talk
Okay.
about today. I
Perfect.
will say I have a fun self-care. Obviously, it was around working out, but if you don't follow her already, her name is Meg Takis, and
Okay.
she is an awesome trainer who I follow on Instagram. So whenever I'm feeling like less than motivated and looking for like workout inspo, and like I don't do a ton of classes anymore or anything, but I'm pretty like coherent in the gym, I follow fitness trainers whom I really like. So if you have any questions about that, leave us leave us any of your questions in the show notes. But I will add her handle. She's great, and she has like workouts every day on her story, and so you can literally like just do the workout she does. It's awesome.
That's amazing. Melissa, what?
Meg Takis.
Takis. Okay.
She's
Show
a
notes.
runner. She's like a Nike ambassador.
Cool.
She runs a ton of marathons, but she trains. She doesn't just run, which is awesome.
Yeah. Cool. Love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Maya, tell us about your marketing move for the day.
So my marketing move, I'll keep it short and sweet. I just want to say numbers don't lie. Don't think that numbers are lying to you, especially in the holiday season. I rely on numbers like most marketers, well, whether you're willing to admit that about your job or not. And for example, we've seen a little bit of a dip in our performance and most importantly, engagement in our newsletter. So was it last week? Yeah, last week I talked about the importance of a newsletter. And so I guess this is kind of piggybacking on that coincidentally because it happened today. But I've been going through, kind of tracking our trends week over week. And we're making some really exciting strides in both our content space and our social media space. And so we've been seeing a consistent tick up of social media. We're gaining new followers, we're gaining the right kinds of engaged followers, meaning that we're promoting content to the people that we want to frankly download our app and engage with us. And they're not stumbling upon us and then retracting their interest, right? They're becoming more sticky. And in seeing that trend and that kind of tracking in the past few weeks, which has been great, I've actually seen that our newsletter has been kind of stagnant. The numbers have not really climbed in the same ways that social media has. And in theory, there should be a correlation there, especially with the rate at which we're growing on social media and on downloads and newsletter subscriptions. So we're getting more subscriptions, but we're not getting enough engagement to my liking. And so my point in saying this is like, even though it's the holiday time and you might, everything's wrapping up and you might want to blame the holiday season for a lack of engagement, I don't think that that's ever the best way to play it. Certainly that will contribute if you're like sending a newsletter on Christmas Day or Thanksgiving Day, or like, a day when your audience isn't online. But for instance, most of us are still working. Like, have you not opened the news that you typically do open today? No, like it's speaking for myself, like I'm still engaged.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's indicative of a lack of engagement because the holiday time. I think it's because, frankly, maybe our formatting, or there are things in our newsletter that need improvement for a growing audience of engaged people. And so I just tasked the team this morning, and we have a Monday kind of, morning meeting, marketing check-in for planning of the week, and also a recap of last week's numbers. And so I'm challenging the team this week to completely overhaul and rethink the newsletter layout and the content add and value that we're giving to our audience.
Yeah.
That's my marketing play.
One of the things that I love about that is there are two things. One is marketers, you are really numbers driven, and the way that they all can, I really like what you're saying is how they can all match together.
Yeah.
So if this is winning over here, then this should be winning. Or what I think is really healthy is like, and we did this in science and academic research, right? Like you're tracking these numbers and then you start to see anomalies or shifts. And then that just makes you go back to basically your hypothesis or your research question. I think one of the things that's so interesting about our newsletter is that our brand has shifted and evolved in the last year. So it's really important to keep tracking those numbers so that you can say, hey, what we were doing before isn't working anymore, or it's working, but maybe we can do it better. And like keeping the numbers as the present tracker to be able to know when you need to iterate again. And I think that's really hard, especially as you get really big. Like when something's working and it works for a long time, then to like know when to innovate again is really complicated, but the numbers really help with that. So that's cool.
And that's the exciting thing about a startup. Like through all the woes and stressors, like we can iterate faster than anybody else can.
Totally.
That's awesome. And our audience is willing to stick with us through that iteration.
Yes.
Great.
This actually moves to our finance point for the day.
Yes. Erin, what is our financial tip for the day?
So we have this group, and you've done a great job as a team. We've been trying to really cultivate user communities that we can support, get user research from, but also support and like use our Nav.it content to help feel confident about their careers, life, and finances. So we had an experience with one of those people in one of those groups where she asked a question about salary negotiation. And I thought it was really interesting. She's getting offered a job at a startup. Mm-hmm. And it was a kind of like, so I'm going to say this for everyone who doesn't know. So startups have different levels of funding. When you're at the early days, you get a little bit of money, like seed funding or pre-seed funding, to prove out concept. Then you start to get metrics. You actually start to have a business. You start to sell a product. Hopefully there's revenue. Sometimes in this world there isn't, but you like have a huge user, audience engagement. And then you start to get the bigger money, and you can say your valuation is huge because look, we have all these people. So once you start to get that bigger money, they call it Series A, Series B, or like C, D, you're like, sometimes if you're looking at an industry that's already at D, you're like, okay, why? Like what's wrong? Sometimes by the time you're at D, if you haven't exited or you haven't sold, somehow sold,
they're not profitable.
You're not profitable. Like, why are you this far down the road? Like, it's a good thing to be aware of if you're looking up companies. But the point is like when you're in those kind of ABC and you get a big influx of money, what often happens is those companies, because they don't have tons and tons of operating capital, they incentivize good talent by some employee equity. So when you go to get that job, and she was getting this offer, a question is like, they didn't say there was employee equity, but it's a totally valid question for her to say, hey, what's like, no, you just closed, is employee equity on the table in this salary negotiation? Mm-hmm. And negotiating like is so important. Even like the big companies or really wherever, is like every HR person has a range. Mm-hmm. You have a general budget, and if you really want a person, even if it's within a couple thousand margin, there's still a range. And you're never, when you're going into a negotiation, going to start at the top of that range, unless you're like straight up, like unless you're just like, look, this is all I got, I'm done, like
Right.
question. But normally, you start a little bit lower so that if the person counters, you can go to your max or you can go to where you're comfortable, and then you call it a day. So salary negotiation is like, I don't know what it is about the feminine experience, and I'm so happy that we are talking about it in the last 4 or 5 years, but like the guilt or the insecurity. I remember not knowing in my 20s that you could negotiate. That was just never a conversation.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
wasn't even a thought. Like, the price tag's a price tag. They say it's, whatever, 75,000, it's
Right.
75,000. Like, there's so I think I'm so glad we're talking about it, but also of all the places in your life where negotiation is normal
Right.
and should be done is in your salary negotiations. So
yeah, I think it's so important. And frankly, like, don't ever feel guilty about it, because they're going to respect you more for trying, or for frankly speaking your piece and telling them what you think you're worth. And if it is a reasonable range, like, if you're 21 and it's your entry level salary, don't go asking for $200,000. Like, if it's within like a reasonable 10K bracket, like, you should be able to prove that value. And frankly, to the employer's perspective, if you know that you should be paying people a competitive salary, no matter if you're VC funded or not. I worked for years at a company that was not VC funded, and this was always the jargon. Oh, well, we're not VC funded, so why are you comparing us to the Airbnb salary across the street? Like, well, I'm comparing you to the Airbnb salary, and this was more about like negotiation post year one.
Yeah.
I'm comparing you because I've gotten an offer there. Like, or, like, I could go there. I want to stay here. But so many times we like overcompensate or justify that money is not the bottom line.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's okay if money is your bottom line. Totally. Like, money is my bottom line. I mean, not now, because I've started a company, but like in my career trajectory, like, I could love the free perks. I could love being able to work out in the middle of the day. Totally. It could like check all my boxes, but if they're not paying me fairly, then like that, I really internalize that, and I don't apologize for that. Like, that means that they don't think that I'm worth what I actually am. And totally. That's a much larger structural issue than, $5,000.
Totally. And I think that that's like the beautiful assessment that each person has to make. Like, where is your value? Where, like, do you inordinately value your freedom and you're willing to take a 10,000 less just to be able to work wherever you want? Or like, that's a value system that you have to decide, but I think this is the other thing. I listened to an executive coach who she coaches, like Fortune, she's here, she does Amazon, Microsoft, like she made her name in the big Fortune hundreds. And she said, I was like, this was a mindset shift for me. She's like, we won't take you. There was a period of time when she worked in HR where they wouldn't take the candidate if they didn't negotiate, because it told them something about the person's ability to stand up for themselves and to advocate for themselves. And they knew that they would get just eaten alive in the environment and in the environment that they were sending them to. So it's I think your values, what your I love it's like what your bottom line is, what you're willing to walk away from, and what your values are, and then don't be afraid to negotiate. And women, I don't know why we have a complex, but it's part of the game. We got to do it.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I am in that same mentality. I will not hire you, even if you're great on paper, if you don't fight for yourself. Like, I'm always gonna lowball you.
We had this.
Always. Like, I'm a bargain shopper.
Yes, we had this experience, and she didn't negotiate, but I wanted her. So I was like, okay, and I took her at the price point that I had offered. But afterwards, after I was like, I'm not after we worked for a while together, we became like, there was enough of a relationship where I was like I would have negotiated that with you. So we're like, next time, like no big deal. You wanted the job. It's all worked out. But like, FYI, you could have probably negotiated that. And
you're talking to me?
No, I'm talking. Oh. No, I'm talking to the woman I hired. I hired her. No. Oh my negotiated.
Well, I mean, not to get too personal, but like you can also negotiate a co-founding role,
Totally,
and
you should.
people should know that.
Totally. And it was important. Okay, so that's great. Let's do it. Let's talk about like we came with a desire to work together, but there was already an established business. So of course it was a negotiation and mutually benefit. You want it to be mutually beneficial, and you want the other person to feel valued, and you also want to like maintain, the ability to function and sustain the business. So like it's just it's all a part. Life is a negotiation. Like trying to get your husband to make your like do the laundry is a negotiation. Why would you not do that on money?
Yeah, and honestly, from that point, we're quite good at negotiating. We negotiate. I mean, we're the majority of consumer spending. Like, we're very good at negotiating, whether or not it's with ourselves, our kids, our husbands, or people out there in the world.
Yes.
So why wouldn't you negotiate with a stranger whose worst case scenario is going to tell you no?
Yeah, I think there's
no is not that big of a deal.
Right. See, and that's a different. I think this is what was not taught to us. Is like this. It's a scarcity mindset to some degree, and also it's a perfection thing, right? So like, oh, if we challenge them, and it's probably made like, our history of the like annoying like aggressive woman, right? Like basically if we challenge them, they're going to whack us down, and like if I ask for more, they're not going to want me anymore.
Yeah.
And that's just like fundamentally not true anymore. It probably was true 50 years ago with like, oh, she's a difficult woman, don't hire her, she negotiated her salary. But now like it's not the game anymore. We're lucky.
No. And frankly, at our stage, like as we hire, like I expect you to negotiate if it's a full-time.
Yeah.
Freelancers and contractors, we can talk about this tomorrow. It's a little bit different of a game.
Totally.
Like I expect you to negotiate your salary. I expect you to negotiate your holiday time. I expect you to negotiate your equity.
Probably not put this out to the world because we're about to
I do, frankly, because then it's an exercise in my negotiating skills, and everybody knows here now that I love a challenge.
That's really just about you and your child, like how you win.
Everything that we do is always about me. So yes.
Right. Check that.
I am the leading lady of my own story.
Well,
the holiday this time of year. So never be the best friend.
The Maya Monell holiday.
No, the holiday, the movie.
What holiday? No, I'm sorry. I'm not cool. What is it?
You've never seen The Holiday?
No.
Okay, everybody feel free to go and troll and harass Erin for not seeing The Holiday. It's the best Christmas time movie ever, and I can quote the entire movie. Please challenge me on that at another episode. Nope. We have kept everybody way too long today, but I do want to end with our favorite topic of real talk. Erin, do you have a real talk?
You do your real talk.
Okay, so my real talk is really funny and I'll be brief, but circling back to the conversation about Alaskan Airlines. So I get to the airport, it's 7:15. My original flight was 9 a.m. and they're now telling me that my flight is at 8 a.m. I checked in like a good little flyer the whole like 24 hours before. So we were checked in, but because they changed our airline and the time, I had to get a new ticket, right? So like I couldn't use the ticket that I had the night before. So I couldn't get it on the app because it's Alaskan Airlines. Just listen, Alaskan Airlines is just the most fucked up airline. They couldn't get their app to download. I couldn't check in. It like didn't register my confirmation. It was so stressful. So the whole car ride, I was like, fuck. And then I get to the airport. And we, so John and I like divide and conquer. I like go to stand in line. He takes the confirmation code and goes to the kiosk. Kiosk isn't working. Line's really long. I see the guy. Of course, this is also kind of my real talk. I love him so much. But, what was the study that came out that said men would drive around, like men in their lifetime drive around like hundreds of extra miles just because they're afraid to ask for directions? I don't know if afraid's the right word, but like, whatever. So I, of course, go right up to the man and I'm like, it's 7:15, the flight's at 8. This is all your fault. Like, this is all Alaskan's fault. He goes, ma'am, this is why we ask you to get here an hour to 2 hours prior to your flight. And I was like, excuse me. I would have been. Ma'am, A. B, it's 7:15 and my flight wasn't 9 9 a.m. So can you please like go do your thing in your computer?
Yes.
And he's like, I can't do it. This is our policy. It won't let me print out a ticket for you. And so I send John to go back in the line and take his ID just in case this works. And I pretend to start crying.
Oh my God, I love you.
And the guy got so uncomfortable. And I was like, obviously a bit of a mess. That he was like, okay. He's like, please don't cry. Please don't cry. Please don't get emotional about this. It's not my fault. And I was like, I know it's not your fault. And I kept like covering my eyes because I'm really bad at this. And he obviously prints out the ticket and he's like, okay, here you go. I'm really, really sorry.
Oh, he could print out the ticket?
Oh yeah, he was just being an
Why
asshole.
did he not do? Oh!
Yeah. So got the ticket, got in clear, got there with, 5 minutes to spare to get a water before we boarded our flight.
Wait, there's so much going on in my head right now.
There were so many undertones of like
sexism.
Yes. But like, which also admittedly played to my favor, but It's because I knew it would play to my favor. And it's like, if John had just gone up to him out of the gate, would it have worked? Would it have not worked? There were so many things happening at 7 a.m. on a Sunday in SFO. I can't even tell you. So that's my real talk.
That's incredible. You get to keep, like, let's end on that one. I don't have anything good like that.
Okay, yeah. Would love to know your other horror stories in traveling for the holiday season. Erin and I are now steady in one place for a while. Yeah, send us your feedback. We want to hear your stories too. I'll add the show notes. I'll add the link to the show notes for my favorite exercise guru, and we'll be back tomorrow with more. Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.